in Ukraine, but it's clearly still a question where in Ukraine, who has authority. Be precise. What do we know?
I'm glad you're asking for that precision, because I kept forcing the economy minister to say, what did he mean? He was requoting the foreign minister, who had said in an interview in Ukraine that the black boxes were still on Ukrainian soil, that they were not in the possession of the... He wasn't sure that they were in the possession of the observers. And so when I said, does that mean you know where the black boxes are? He would not say that. He would not say that they had them or that they knew exactly, or who had possession of them. But it scotched the rumor that these boxes had been taken east across into Russia. So they are still on Ukrainian soil. And you've got this bizarre, almost Cold War spy novel rush to get to the black boxes first. Wolf, one point to note, listening to what Phil Black was just saying then, I was absolutely taken with the enormous task. They don't just need a few people to be going in there. As Peter Golds will testify later, you need hundreds of people. You need refrigeration trucks. You need hazardous material distribution and disposal. The size, the discrepancy, Wolf, between what is there and what is needed for a half-decent recovery operation with dignity is absolutely mind-boggling.
It is heart-wrenching and shocking, I must say, to see what's going on at the scene. I can only imagine how awful this must be for family members who might be watching right now to see what the carnage there and the lack of authority, the lack of credibility, any kind of semblance of recovery, if you will. It's heartbreaking to see that. General Hertling, you worked extensively with the Ukrainian military. You know the region well. What's your read of how sophisticated these pro-Russian rebels might be?
Well, they're very sophisticated, Wolf, and I think the fact that they're using the Buk system, what the military calls an SA-11 or a gadfly under NATO terminology, just shows how sophisticated they are. This is not a video game system. This is not a point-and-shoot air defense system. This is a tough system to run. It's usually linked with a bigger radar, but in fact it can use the onboard radar to intercept. It's not, again, it's not a video game, so it doesn't give extreme details like the type of aircraft you're shooting down. It paints the sky, it gets a radar signature, it determines altitude, bearing, and speed, and then it links the missile to the radar and shoots. They didn't know what they were shooting at. They knew they were shooting at an airplane. They have shot down aircraft at lower levels in the past, not necessarily with this system. But this is complicated, and it took a skilled crew to do what they did. Again, this system doesn't have what we have in some of our U.S. systems, the identification friend or foe, IFS system. Georgia used this system in 2008 to shoot down some Russian military in their war with them. So again, this is a fearful system. This is an awesome air defense system that we train heavily against in the United States. And to put it against a civilian airliner or a slow-moving airliner, as if they thought it was a transport plane, that's a relatively easy shot compared to what it's designed to kill down, which is cruise missiles and fast-moving jets.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I've heard that now, and it is shocking indeed. I want everyone to stand by. Joining us now is the spokesman for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, those international monitors who tried to get to the scene today. Michael Bosher, Q, is joining us. Michael, what happened today? Because all of us want those OSCE monitors to see what's going on. Who prevented you guys from doing your job?
Yeah, hi, Wolf. Well, listen, there was a lot of anticipation of our visit. It was all over social media, news networks were covering it. And we had a very smooth kind of transfer from our various cities where we're normally based to the crash area. But once we got to the crash area, that's where things dramatically changed. We were basically confronted by armed individuals who seemed to be controlling the area. We carefully explained what our mission is, and that's to report and to monitor and help facilitate dialogue. But we were met with anything. It went from indifference to rude, very rude behavior and even provocative behavior. When we were leaving, there was a shot fired into the air. We were humiliated, and most importantly, we were very limited in the amount of space that we were able to cover, maybe about 200 meters of road, and we were there for only 75 minutes. So you can't do very much in that time, clearly.
Would you say there's any serious effort to secure that crash scene? Because it looks like a total disaster.
Well, I think it was Richard Quest who used the word mind-boggling, and I've covered air crashes before, and this certainly was in that category. Well, one of our intents today was to evaluate how secure the perimeter of the crash site is, and we saw very, very little security, rudimentary at best. The other thing, of course, is the bodies. I mean, they're still lying there. We talked to some emergency rescue officials, and they said their job is only limited to marking where there are bodies and body parts, but not to move them. Their response was, well, that's someone else's job to do. So I think that is the big question right now, is even if we're able to determine what exactly is needed and how it can be done, which parties will be acceptable to people who have control over that area to do things like recover the bodies, to help, analyze the debris, that sort of thing.
We're told that these pro-Russian rebels, in effect, are in control of this crash site. Was that your appreciation, your understanding when you were there?
Yeah, they're firmly in control in terms of access. It didn't struck us that they really knew what they should be doing. As we speak, we are in talks with our contacts here to make sure that it's not a repeat of what happened today. Our intent is to go out there in a few hours when there's daylight, spend the whole day doing things exactly what we're supposed to do. Again, assess the security of the area, the perimeter, do a proper body count, examine whether the wreckage has been tampered with. And I know you were talking about the black boxes just now. It was our intent to possibly even transfer them or transport them today. When we asked for the commander of the local area to ask him, well, where are they? There was no commander. There was no one in charge to be able to answer that question. It was, again, mind-boggling.
And one final question. I know in the past several months, several of your OSCE monitors have been detained by these separatists. First of all your people okay? Anyone still being detained?
Thanks for asking. Yes, they're fine. We have no one being held right now. But having said that, incident where 8 of our colleagues were held up for up to a month, and by the way, they were taken very close to the area where the plane went down. You know, that was a real shock to our system, and so we're being extra careful in terms of security. There's a lot of armed groups. There's a lot of firepower. It's actually very scary in some areas, so very difficult for a monitoring mission to operate, but we are assuming that risk, and we're trying to get our job done as best we can.
Michael, be careful over there. You guys do very important work, but I know it's risky, it's dangerous, so be very careful. The spokesman for the OSCE joining us. Still ahead, we have new information on the U.S. role in the investigation of the shoot-down of Flight 17. Stand by for that. And the clues. And in the carnage, a veteran crash investigator tells us what he sees in the photos of the Flight 17 wreckage.
Moderate to severe Crohn's disease is tough, but I've managed. I got to be pretty good at managing my symptoms, except that managing my symptoms was all I was doing. When I finally told my doctor, he said my Crohn's was not under control. He said Humira is for adults like me who've tried other medications but still experience the symptoms of moderate to severe Crohn's disease. And that in clinical studies, the majority of patients on Humira